The man they call Mr. Normal is the next president of France, promising a new start for his country and for Europe. But is François Hollande up to the challenges facing him? And what are his priorities? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the programme. I'm Taimur Nabili. Now, France has elected its first socialist president in 17 years, a boost to the left on a continent that has been gradually swinging to the right. François Hollande's message that the German insistence on austerity must be tempered with plans to stimulate growth helped propel him to victory, but now he has to act to reassure Eurozone leaders that he is able to play a part in facing down Europe's challenges. From Paris, Emma Haywood reports.
A new political era for France. François Hollande elected president. After 17 years, the country has a staunchly socialist leader, promising change and a new direction away from austerity.
Je mesure aussi que l'Europe nous regarde.
Europe is looking at us. And when the result was made public, I'm sure that in many countries in Europe, it was relief, hope, the idea that at last austerity would no longer be seen as unavoidable.
Conceding defeat in front of his devastated supporters in Paris, Nicolas Sarkozy struck a more humble tone than of late.
I am fully responsible for this defeat.
As France woke to this new political dawn, excitement and anxiety in equal measure, Hollande won this contest with a narrow margin. Little more than 1.1 million votes separated him from Sarkozy.
I think that's going to change nothing, in fact. It's not very important, they are quite the same.
Political participation amongst the French was very high. So now we have to ensure that all the elements of the left come together to form a government of national unity and to accomplish important reforms, including reforms in national education.
There will be no honeymoon period for François Hollande. He'll need to reassure the French people and investors that they can trust him, that his plans will boost growth and not harm recovery. And Hollande, or Mr. Normal as he's being dubbed here, will be watched closely by the rest of the Eurozone. Sarkozy and the German Chancellor Angela Merkel sang the same tune on government spending. Hollande's approach is quite different. His appointment will alarm some. The circumstances in the Eurozone will perhaps determine just how much he will really be able to achieve. Emma Haywood, Al Jazeera, Paris.
So how will François Hollande tackle the challenges facing his country and Europe? To answer this question and more, I'm joined by three guests. In Paris, Christian Mallard is senior foreign analyst for France Television. Also in Paris, Eric Pape is a political commentator and a contributor to Newsweek magazine. And in Berlin, Ansgar Belke is an economist at the German Institute of Economic Research. Welcome to all three of you. Thank you very much indeed for being with us on the programme. Let me begin first with you, Christian Mallard, in Paris. They call him Mr. Normal in France and portray him, or they used to portray him up until the last few days, it would seem, as a man of very little charisma, not really much in the way of breaking things down or anything notable about his personality at all, is how he seemed to be portrayed. And yet all of a sudden, all the international papers are blaming him for destroying world markets, of being a socialist and all the horrors that that might contain, and of possibly destroying the euro. But what is this man really like, and is he actually going to cause the chaos that some people are trying to suggest?
No, definitely François Hollande is a reasonable, low-profile man who does not, he won't be as showy, as arrogant as Nicolas Sarkozy could have been in the past. And as you know, he has been elected also with the help of this anti-Sarkozy feeling which developed inside the French public opinion. We were fed up with Sarkozy's personality and style. Monsieur Hollande definitely wants to distance himself away from the European politics that Sarkozy has been leading until now. And of course, I do understand that for our German friends, it might be a problem when we have the approach. We have Monsieur Hollande who wants to say openly, I want to create growth. I am not anymore for austerity measures. And at the same time, until now, Madame Merkel, Chancellor Merkel, was really working on austerity measures, imposing austerity measures all the way, because Sarkozy also followed Madame Merkel very well, like a disciplined pupil. It won't be the case with Monsieur Hollande, and the next test will be in the coming days when we have the Franco-German meeting with the Franco-German axis, which want to be preserved. Monsieur Moscovici, with a close lieutenant to Monsieur Hollande, told me 2 days ago, we want to have soft, good, friendly, reliable relationship with Germany. We don't want any bone of contention. So we will see what's kept in store.
Right. Well, we'll get onto the Franco-German relationship in just a minute. But Eric Pape, let me ask you, is Monsieur Hollande a scary socialist and somebody, I mean, you know, that word, I don't know what it means anymore. In America, socialism means communism. They're almost synonymous, and almost certain death. In Europe, it's perhaps not quite so ridiculous. But in France, what exactly does Monsieur Hollande represent in terms of his politics and economics that is so different from Monsieur Sarkozy?
Not so much. He represents, he's the embodiment of fairness and decency, according to his campaign, of reasonableness and of social justice. How different will that be from Sarkozy remains to be seen. I think what we're going to see in the coming weeks and months is just a slight balancing of the scales. Wealthy people are going to be paying a bit more, and people who've been under a lot of pressure and who have seen their buying power decline may receive some benefits. The overall impact of this on France's accounts is not going to be enormous. Hollande has promised to balance France's accounts by 2016, Sarkozy 2017. In reality, Hollande is a social democrat who in France is called a socialist. The socialist leadership has long been social democrat. They just don't tell many of their party supporters because they're afraid of losing the far left.
All right. Well,
on election day.
Let's ask an economist for his opinion on this. Ansgar Belke. Now, I want to, first of all, let's differentiate very clearly here between the euro situation and just general theory for a minute, if we could, because the European condition and the state of the euro as a currency and the European economies is particularly unique right now. But just in general terms, as an outsider, you look at someone like Monsieur Hollande. If we were living 5 years ago before the global economic crisis hit, would you look at this man and say, here is a bloke who is seriously going to challenge the orthodoxy of global economics, who's going to pose a major threat to the world of capitalism?
I don't think he's challenging the economic orthodoxy, because what he's saying is just to focus more a little bit on growth. And this is exactly what the ECB is saying right now. Mr. Draghi and also Merkel admits that the look only on austerity is not enough. It may be good for some countries, for instance Spain, as you saw, when Spain relieved the deficit ceilings, immediately interest rates on Spanish government bonds went up. But on the other hand, the problems in the euro area are mainly lying in the field of competitiveness in part. So what Hollande is saying, to augment the austerity package and the fiscal compact by growth aspects. And this is nothing bad. And Merkel can easily offer something like additional credit loans or loans by the European Investment Bank, or a little bit of stretching of the deficit ceilings. So there will be a compromise, and I don't see many differences between Hollande and Sarkozy. Both were keen on a weaker euro.
All right, well, now that we've got that out of the way and maybe slain that socialist demon for a moment, let's get on to the real issues, and that is what is going to happen, because unfortunately we are in the situation in Europe, and we are in a position whereby some differences in opinion in this unstable time could prove to be the straw that breaks the camel back. So let me ask you again, Ansgar, about what might happen in these particular circumstances, because what we're going to see is Monsieur Hollande going to Berlin, talking to Angela Merkel, and if we just quote their relative comments here. Last Thursday, Merkel said the rescue strategy for Europe, their economic pact, is, quote, not renegotiable. And Hollande says Germany will not decide for all of Europe. So what do we have here? Do we have a potential crisis, or do we simply have a difference of opinion that can be sorted out by politics?
I think both have to readjust their relation first. As you remember, Merkel did not invite Hollande in Berlin when he was here. But after some weeks of converging, I think they will well go ahead together, because also Hollande knows that after the election, some weeks will go, and then the financial markets will look at what he has promised. For instance, look at the high share of the public sector in France, which is unique in Europe, and other things. I think he will be very much recognized that he will be constrained by financial markets, which will punish a pure socialist strategy. So they will go for a compromise, for a package deal, and this will be the real issue there. Merkel will offer some growth compact, which she will add to the fiscal compact. Hollande will give in. He will not go for Eurobonds anymore, at least not as soon as the Social Democrats will be governing Germany, maybe in 2013. And he will, in the end, I think, and I will bet on that, he will not be keen on renegotiating the fiscal compact anymore, because he will get offered something different.
All right. Well, Ansgar's talking and betting on political reconciliation. Christian, what do you think? Is the personal element in this relationship likely to be problematic, do you think? I mean, having seen Merkel embrace Sarkozy's campaign, are they going to get on?
Yes, I'm convinced that we have a French expression when we say, when we come to a time at the end of the day when it's time for compromise, something rational, to the understanding of everybody. Without the Franco-German axis, Europe cannot move forward. The Eurozone cannot work. So it's in the interest of France, Germany, and the rest of the Eurozone to work together and move forward in the same direction. I'm convinced that Monsieur Hollande will be very pragmatic, and especially if he has, as a Secretary of Finance, as we mentioned, the name of Monsieur Sapin, who is experienced, who knows about Germany. He might have a Prime Minister, Monsieur Hérault, who speaks German, who knows Germany very well. So I think we have all the assets to go forward with Germany, and I think pragmatism should be the key word to move forward and find a compromise, balanced solution when they are going to meet in the coming days. So I don't worry too much about the issue of this discussion between Madame Merkel and Monsieur Hollande. And Monsieur Hollande will be fine.
But I mean, this analysis that we've been chewing over, all three of you have been presenting a status quo kind of situation. Are we beyond that? Eric, I mean, it may be that Hollande's personal imperatives and his personal instincts will be to do exactly as Christian has just outlined. But are we not facing a different landscape here? Hasn't the French population spoken up and said that we don't think the orthodoxy that Europe has been imposing is the correct one? And shouldn't Monsieur Hollande actually be paying attention to that and going to Berlin representing that perspective as opposed to the ones that we've been talking about?
If I can cut in here, I think that he is planning on doing that. He's trying to get Europe to focus more energy on creating economic growth. I think that no one is against that idea. The question is how much it costs to spur economic growth, and that's where there's a negotiation that will take place between France and Germany. Hollande will be supported by several countries in Southern Europe in particular, who feel like they need some help and they need a little bit of relief, so that there's not a negative downward spiral economically that's going to lead to more and more debt because there's less and less growth. I think there is a notable change there, but to go from there to the issue of personalities, François Hollande is a very consensual person. He and Merkel are both mature adult politicians who know the difference between the tone and tenor of a campaign when they were on opposite sides, and how you move forward and rule now. So I don't foresee big problems. I think Germany is also perhaps coming to grips with the fact that there's enough momentum in Europe pushing for some growth initiatives that they will at least offer something symbolic. Afterwards, how much it is substance-wise, whether it's a fig leaf or something that is actually helpful to stimulating growth in Europe is another matter.
All right, let's just broaden out the perspective here and the agenda here a little bit, because the immediate problems he's facing are at home with public debt and high unemployment. But let's have a look at some of the other policy challenges facing Monsieur Hollande. He's talked a great deal about a more independent stance towards Europe, but he'll have to convince those Eurozone leaders that he's dealing with, that he's up to the job of dealing with not only the demands at home, but also the problems of Europe in the broader sense. Also, immigration. That was a heated debate within the election itself. Hollande's announced some tough measures to deal with the immigration problem in France. He'll have to live up to his word if he's to keep the right-wing voters happy. And there's foreign policy too, a key concern for the French president. And an unexperienced Hollande will have his hands full. France's relationship with NATO and the US, and withdrawing troops from Afghanistan, all high on his agenda there as well. But again, let me just keep focusing on the euro issue here. And Ansgar, let me ask you what you think, because a lot of economic commentators have been saying that effectively we are perched on the precipice here of the end of the euro. We've seen the elections in Greece supplementing what's happened in France. We've seen in Germany itself today, Schleswig-Holstein, showing that Merkel's support may be eroding as well. We've got Italian elections underway, and we've got the markets themselves and a number of debt issues coming onto the markets within the next couple of months that could test all of these propositions. Are we in a time of turmoil?
So I don't think that the election results in France are so dangerous for the euro's prospect for the future, because I just said there's much compromise around with respect to that. Germany has given in its stance with respect to the central bank. The old Bundesbank rule-based monetary policy is not in place anymore. And on the other hand, even the fiscal compact is dealing with structural deficits. They're saying it leaves enough leeway for infrastructure investment if the deficit of the budget is caused by business cycle developments. And France is in severe competitiveness problems. It does not have the same expert performance as even France and Spain. So if you compare these countries, France is very worse off, so there's much room to compromise. But much more dangerous are the electoral results in Greece, because what you see there is large uncertainty with respect to the electoral outcome, who will be the next government. There is no leadership anymore, and even more dangerous, the investors cannot trust in the fact that Greece will stick to the rules, that it will not renegotiate the contracts, and in the end it will be now the fate of Greece to have to exit and to leave the euro area. You can even argue right now that the ECB has sheltered the euro area from any damaging impact from that, but this will not last forever. The ECB has launched some bazookas right now, which have an effect only for some months, but we will see what happens afterwards. But so these results are the worst.
But there is a gathering momentum. Eric, do you think that Hollande may try and coordinate a new front in the European approach to all of this? We've had a government falling in Holland on the back of this as well. We've got the German Parliament voting on the fiscal pact as well as Ireland. Is it possible that Hollande will actually go out there and try and create a new consensus amongst the European countries?
Well, I think he's definitely going to try to create momentum. I don't know if he believes that he's going to make it all the way to a consensus against Merkel. If it's a consensus with Merkel that's encouraged by these different forces that you've just mentioned, then certainly, of course, he's going to try. He's going to try as long as it doesn't have a big impact on markets that would force France to step back and that would force Europe as a whole to step back. The question really for me is what the markets accept and whether markets understand that you want growth now, immediately, or as soon as possible to start allowing countries to take their debts down a bit, or whether it's going to be all about austerity, which there seems to be an increasing consensus suggesting that that creates a downward spiral.
Christian, on the other issues we touched on, immigration was an issue in the election there, and also foreign policy. I mean, Sarkozy was very much at the forefront of pushing for action in Libya and Syria against Iran. Which of these issues is more important in France and more significant generally, do you think?
Well, there are three things. It's clear that Monsieur Hollande, who has no experience, he has no diplomatic skills, will have to face big challenges ahead concerning foreign affairs. You alluded to Libya. Sarkozy, definitely with Prime Minister Cameron of Great Britain and President Obama, did a good job. They succeeded in overthrowing Gaddafi, who was a tyrant and everything, but none of them had any vision of the future of Libya when we see where we are up to today since Gaddafi has been dead. Now, I know that definitely one of the challenges, and I was talking about that with his potential Secretary of Foreign Affairs, Monsieur Moscovici, the other day, is the next meeting with Obama concerning NATO and the next withdrawal of the French troops from Afghanistan. I asked Monsieur Moscovici, are you serious when you say you are going to withdraw the troops, the French troops, at the very end of the year? NATO is a big alliance. You have to take into account the advice and the vision of your partners. There is problem of logistics, there is problem of coherence in the organization. He said, our decision is irrevocable. We already approached, so they were anticipating the victory, we already approached the Obama staffers, the Obama's advisors, and told them there was no way we are going to change our decision when we meet in Chicago. So we will see, probably, maybe, Obama has already accepted, or maybe we don't know yet what will be his official reaction with his other partners. So definitely, Monsieur Hollande will have to be very clear on the way he wants to tackle this NATO problem and the French troops in Afghanistan. Okay. But let me add something which is important. To have a clear reflection about what French policy will be concerning Europe, the Eurozone. First, as we alluded to with our friends, the demands at home are so huge that Monsieur Hollande will have a lot of work to meet the demands, reducing the debt, the deficit, the rate of unemployment, and all that. And he will have problems with his allies, with the far left on the one hand, where Monsieur Mélenchon, who got 4 million votes, already said, my program is incompatible with the one of Hollande, and if I had not got the 4 million votes and my support, he would not be here. He will have problem with the Greens concerning the nuclear also. So France might be a problem, and at the same time, let's give a chance to Hollande to solve these problems.
Okay, very quickly, Eric, do you think that in the light of what Christian is saying, how do you think that the other leaders, Cameron, Obama, will be looking at Hollande, and do you think his team is particularly concerned about that?
I think they're obviously going to be concerned. Sarkozy was a very dedicated ally to the U.S. He was a little quirky. His sort of hyperactivity and need to show his role may have grated at times, but overall he was quite dedicated on the issues that have mattered most internationally recently. But I think that Hollande has already started making it clear that he's going to have a good, warm relationship with Obama. I think the Obama people aren't overly concerned. I think they know this is someone who's consensual, but they certainly won't expect him to stand out front the way that Nicolas Sarkozy did in places like Libya.
And very quickly, final word to Ansgar. I mean, it seems as if Hollande, in fact, is not necessarily the most important issue in all of this, because the whole European question is bigger than any one country or any one man. Do you think, as a final comment, that Europe is, at this stage, going to have to make some serious changes to its setup, including perhaps the expulsion or the withdrawal of Greece and maybe even the end of the euro?
I think it's totally clear that Greece cannot rely purely on austerity packages. It's totally clear that Greece needs a devaluation of its currency, and if this does not work internally by shrinking wages or prices, this must happen via devaluation of the currency, and this can only happen outside the euro area.
That's where we will have to leave it. Thank you very much indeed. That's Ansgar Belke joining us there from Germany.
Thank you.
Also on the programme today in Paris, Christian Mallard and Eric Pape joining us on the show. Thank you all very much indeed for talking to us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching this edition of Inside Story. We always welcome your feedback on the programme. You can email us with your thoughts and opinions at insidestory@aljazeera.net. For the moment, thanks for watching, and it's goodbye from me and the team here in Doha.